This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings, and of course to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
Welcome. Today we have a special guest. It is Uncle Karl, Spielvogel from North Carolina. And welcome to the next episode of the Hive With Us podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Martinez. I'm here at Southern California. There he is, Uncle Karl, man of the hour.
How's it going?
Man, I'm good. I guess you want to show your sign. I mean, you're already pulling it out anyway. Let's see the sign. There you go.
We buy houses, 704-777-777. Houses and land.
That's awesome, man. You're only local in North Carolina, right?
We do most of our business in North Carolina, but we got some deals in California, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, and anywhere the deals are really effed up, we'll go there.
That's good. Now, one thing I like about what you do, you're a deal problem solver, and you solve big problems. That's always the good thing.
We love deals. Anything that multiple missing heirs, judgments, bad title, excess proceeds, partition sales, variances, subdividing, assemblage, creative financing, anything that's, can I say fucked up? Or I probably can't say that on this thing, can I?
I mean, you already said it.
Okay. Anything that's different, screwed up, that's what we like to do.
I really like hitting that point because us as real estate investors have to be big problem solvers, and that's what we specialize in. So I think you kind of take it a step above where you kind of solve difficult problems, because not everybody solves difficult problems, they just solve problems. But it's a cool niche to be in, and it's always interesting because you have the coolest stories.
I had a motorcycle gang after me one time when I stalked the wrong person. That was not fun. Had a gun pointed at my head. I had to open a goat farm to take advantage of the town of TGK. There's always something crazy going on.
Who knew becoming a real estate investor would get you having to break into houses, guns pulled on you, and all the shenanigans that comes along with it?
Lawsuits occasionally, things like that, suing people. Try not to get into that too much, but it happens. So,
how long have you been in real estate? Because I feel like you've had like 10 plus years of experience.
I did it from 2000, and then I did to 2008, and I lost everything. Everything came tumbling down, and I'd love to say it was because of 2008, and that made it quicker, but it was my business model. I was buying for appreciation. I was buying, and then all of a sudden I had all these high interest loans and lost everything. Then I went into the used car business for a while with my ex-girlfriend, which is really stupid. Don't ever go into business with your ex-girlfriend, and don't ever do used cars. But we did buy here, pay here, and we learned a lot from that. We had the police here every 2 weeks. Seriously, every 2 weeks there's a problem. Yeah, we did buy here, pay here. We're reaping cars in the middle of the night. It was not fun. And then I got back in probably about 6.5 years ago. I was totally broke. I didn't have any money, and I got back into the business.
I think a lot of people got hurt during the recession, 2008. And for me, I'm like, I've never gone through a recession. I'm like, what's it going to be like? Kind of like
This one was extraordinary. This was like none before the Great Depression. It took a lot of people down, and it exposed a lot of weaknesses. I do things a lot differently now than I did then. So it was good in a way. It was very humbling, and it was good that I went through that stuff,
I mean, you get wiser. You get wiser as it goes, and time is the best teacher.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump right in, and I'll tell you how I got back involved. So I'm totally broke. I have very little money. I have a used car dealership with my ex-girlfriend. It's going downhill fast. And so I was going back to all these real estate meetups. I ran into a guy named Mitch Young. We'd done some business together, and he had a property tax delinquent. He said, I got this deal. If you can find this guy, you can find this guy, get him under contract, we'll give you half the deal. So I did some snooping on the internet. The guy named is Lee Arthur. I found his resume. Turns out he's a used car turnaround specialist. Okay. So I called him up and said, Lee Arthur, I hear you're used car turnaround specialist. My car dealership is struggling. It's doing really bad. Can you come up and help me? And he's like, sure. So he came up that weekend. So I hired him, scraped together. He did give me a really great deal, came up to my office. So we're in the office, and then I call my buddy Mitch up. I said, Mitch, you know that guy you're looking for? The author? He goes, I can't find him anywhere. I said, why don't you come down to my office? He's in my office. He's like, what? The guy's in your office. So Mitch came down. We met the guy. And then what we did is we let him go back to Columbia. I'm in Charlotte. He went back to Columbia. And then we called him up a day later and said, hey, you know what? You actually have a property still here in Charlotte. It's going to tax sale. Because he told me he didn't have anything. And I mean, who's crazy enough to hire someone to get to know them for the chance to buy their property? You know, and that was a little bit odd. But anyways, I called him up. He said, well, we have an offer for $35,000. He said, someone just called me. And I was like, Lee Arthur, you know us. You met us. We'll match that. I'll be down there, an hour and a half. I drove down to Columbia and we signed the contract. We bought it for $35,000. We ended up just clearing the lot, spent a few $100 and sold it, made $58,000.
Wow.
So Mitch is like, you're pretty good at this. I got another one for you. And he would feed me these tax delinquent ones. I would go search the people down, find them, and then, work the deal with them, buy the property. We'd split the second one. We made $68,000 on another lot. Wow. So we're like, hey, this tax delinquent stuff's pretty good. And then we started realizing a lot of the people a lot of the better deals people are deceased. So we're like, how do we do this? So we started working with the attorneys, and that's when we started learning how to buy shares and work through with judgments and all these different problems through the property. By the way, working property tax liens won't work in your state or won't work in North Carolina. If you guys work in North Carolina, I'm the only one it works for. So stay away from the property tax delinquents in North Carolina because they're gold.
He has the list and he's not selling it to nobody. That's what you're saying, right?
It's easy. You can call the county and get the list. Anybody can get it, But the whole thing we want people to know is you have to work it. You have to pull it up. You have to look at it, see who's deceased. We build out family trees, and then we'll call the heirs. And this is how niche we'll get. We'll even look to see if there's judgments, and then we'll even buy the ones with judgments on there too. And then we'll either discount the judgment, we'll let the judgment expire, or we'll buy the judgment. And you can make huge profits that way.
I want to talk about judgments a little bit because a lot of people don't understand a judgment and how it works. So one thing I really want to key in on is that you can negotiate judgments. Everybody thinks I have a $10,000 judgment, I have to pay $10,000. And that's what most sellers think. That's what most wholesalers think. So let's kind of jumping down the judgment line a little bit.
Yeah, so basically judgments are good for 10 years. Check your statutes. I'm not an attorney, blah, 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 blah. Check with your attorney, all those disclosures. Judgments are pretty much good for 10 years. Then they can renew them after that 10 years, okay? Very few people do. And that you can also, if someone has a judgment, they can technically foreclose on the property. Very few people do. Like I've never seen the IRS foreclose. I'm not saying they won't. Ford Motor Credit, I've never seen them foreclose. I've never seen HD Supply. So then the judgments are good for 10 years. They can renew them. Well, if you buy the property during that time and then they renew the judgment, it only renews against the person, not the property. And that's huge. But we love to search these things. Then once you get the judgment, again, you can buy them. You can let them expire, which most of them do, or you can call up and negotiate a discount. Now, I'll give you an example of a deal we did. It was a piece of property on Industrial Way in Charlotte. It was a lot owned by a defunct corporation, and it had $25,000 delinquent property taxes, a $73,000 judgment to HD Supply, a $63,000 judgment to Ford Motor Credit. We gave the owner $15,000, And we said, we'll take over all the problems. So you got judgments, you got taxes, you got defunct corporation. So we bought it through an attorney with title insurance subject to the judgments. That means everything's clean, you're good to go. You just have to deal with these judgments. The first thing we did is we called up the HD Supply judgment. We skip traced them, called them up, and we offered them $15,000 to buy the judgment. And they're like, well, can you do 16? And we're like, sure. So we bought that $73,000 judgment for $16,000. The next one was Ford Motor Credit. Okay, Ford Motor Credit. There's a company called Smith Dedman in this area. They're attorneys that do the foreclosing. So you actually have to call the foreclosing, or not the foreclosing, the one that got the judgment.
Yeah,
so you have to skip them. We called them. You also have to have an authorization to release from the old owner saying you can speak on their behalf.
Yeah.
So we called them up. We negotiated the $63,000 judgment down to the $22,000. Okay. Then, so now we own the HD Supply judgment. And the reason we bought the HD Supply judgment is because it was in second position behind the taxes. And that way it's worth $73,000. I can niche this down. So we could either go for excess proceeds on the sale, or we wanted the Ford Motor Credit to be like, if we would have just paid off the judgment, then Ford Motor Credit goes in the second position. You understand? And so that's why we wanted to buy that judgment. We negotiated with the Ford Motor Credit for the discount. We sold the property and we made $143,000 on that deal. I've got slides for it, and maybe let's do a hive mind where I've got the slides, the judgments, and I'll show you exactly. But just know that you can a lot of times do that discount, or no, we could have waited 2.5 more years. Both those judgments would have expired. This is how much dumbasses Ford Motor Credit is and HD Supply. They don't even realize people have property. They don't even realize it's technically attached. They just pretty much let them go and expire for the most part. So it's learning which companies will don't pay attention and whatever. So you guys can take over properties sometimes with judgments and then discount them, let them expire or buy them, but they technically can foreclose during that time. But most of them don't.
So I heard a nugget that probably went over like 99% of people's heads, but I really want to hone in on it. So no one talks about this. And I really want you to talk about it because no one knows about this unless you know specialized knowledge or someone like you. So what is excess proceeds? Because you barely mentioned it.
Okay.
But it's such a big thing. But no, I want you to explain the other thing too, because how does excess proceeds work in a real estate transaction? Because I guarantee you 90% of the people that hear this are like, what is he talking about?
Well, excess proceeds is whoever owns the property, okay? Let's say it goes to a tax sale or foreclosure sale, okay? Let's say the taxes are $12,000 and the property sells for $100,000, right? There's about $88,000 in excess proceeds that's deposited with the clerk. And whoever owns the property at the end of the foreclosure sale or owns the property, you can go ahead and get that. Now, there's some caveats there, like if there's some other judgments, sometimes they come out and city lien. So, and then sometimes the foreclosing attorneys will charge a 5% fee. So you have to factor that in. So the property sells for $100,000, there'll be an extra fee for $5,000. So excess proceeds is basically whatever. Let's say they're foreclosing on, 12,000 taxes owed, sells for 100. The 88,000 is excess proceeds. That's the Cliff Notes. That's the short version of excess proceeds. And there's a whole bunch of courses on that. And there's we make a ton of money on the excess proceeds strategy too.
So I want to break this down a little bit further for everybody that doesn't know what it means. So when I learned about real estate, I thought that whenever somebody was foreclosed on, that money just went in limbo and the seller never gets it. And for all the wholesalers out there, that is not the case. It technically goes to excess proceeds. Whoever holds the title gets the excess proceeds. They just have to wait for all the paperwork and foreclosure to go through and for all that stuff to go process. And then you can collect the excess proceeds. So it does not go in limbo. And I'm going to reaffirm that. It does not go in limbo. Somebody can collect that. If nobody collects it, it goes to overages and it just sits inside the treasury account for the state.
And then it's set in the clerk's office, and then eventually it's escheated to the state. and they get the money. So they love when they can do this because they make millions and millions a year from these excess proceeds. But, we have to hire an attorney to do this, and it's not guaranteed. Okay. That's one thing I want to make sure people know. It's not 100% guaranteed, but most of the times you can get those excess proceeds. You got to be careful because if you missed a judgment or something, on the person, you have to run title too. Then the judgment holder can apply for excess proceeds. Yeah. And let me give you a perfect example. We bought a house from an heir. There's a house that's being foreclosed on. There's one heir. We paid them $500 for their deed. They just want to get out of it. They had a judgment that was up to $11,000 in accruing interest. Most judgments accrue interest. So this had accrued up to $19,000. I skip traced the judgment holder and bought that judgment for $2,250. When we applied for excess proceeds, we applied to get the money from the judgment. That we own that judgment now, so we got a check for $19,000 plus we got the rest of the overage on the property. So that's if it's nichey, if it's strange, weird, we want to learn it. We want to run with it. And we do all sorts of stuff. Now, here's the thing too, is we do a lot of these properties, a lot of tax delinquents, people passed away. And most of those times people don't open an estate. So there's no probate. So what we do is we build the family tree and then we'll buy out the heirs' shares. Okay. And this was what's really cool. If you don't get all the heirs' shares, then let's say we end up with 75% of it. We can do what's called a partition sale, where we force the whole property to be sold. When it goes to sale at the courthouse, you win either way. If it sells for low, you buy it, you own 75%. If it goes for high, you let it go and collect the excess proceeds. So most of the time we're able to get the heirs together, buy the properties and own them. But if we can't, we have multiple exit strategies. I guess I'm getting too nichey into this stuff, but
no, it's good, man, because I love the conversation because excess proceeds. I took a course. I took a special ed course on overages, so I learned about excess proceeds and how it records real estate. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been in real estate for 3-4 years and didn't hear about this till now. No one knows this. And then I met another investor in California, and that's what he does. He knew about the strategy. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And then you mention it, and I'm like, okay, all the people that do niche title work and niche real estate, they all know this stuff, and they don't, no one ever talks about it because it's so specialized knowledge that you really have to know the ins and outs. And it's such a great little nugget out there for everybody to do some research on excess proceeds, lien positions, all that stuff, because it's important whenever you're doing troubled title, all that stuff.
You run into a lot of in the tax delinquents, in the foreclosures. You'll run into a lot of the problems because they're not paying their tax. There's usually a problem. Someone's dead. There's a judgment, all sorts of stuff. And then we love land. I guess you guys sort of like land a little bit too, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit here and there.
A little bit here and there. So one of the things, we look for lots that are too small to build on. Okay. And we do what are called variances. It has to be a lot of record. I think before 1998, there's certain criteria that it has to meet. Okay. And so what we do is we find these lots, we'll buy them for cheap. We got this one lot for $500, 210 Walford, part of a package. I'll throw this lot in, it's not buildable, it's too small. Well, we hired a variance attorney. We went through, and the variances, they basically take it in front of the city and they say we have a hardship, and they allow us to move the buildability lines out. So it's buildable. They're basically taking something that's too small and for the best way, and then they say we're going to let you build on it. So we're taking these lots that are too small. So we bought this one at 210 Walford. We did the variance on it. We sold it for $95,000. We made $84,000. We bought another one on 17th Street for $23,000. Got the variance, and we sold that for, I think it was $160. Okay. Another one on East 19th Street, small lot, and it's better if I show you. But we bought it for $12,500 and sold it for $140. So it's another niche thing. We're looking in the variance. What's cool is sometimes we'll find lots that are 40 foot wide, okay, and it requires 50 foot to build on. Well, we can get a variance. If there's a lot of record before, I think 1998 or 1992, we can hire our attorney, David Murray, in Charlotte. He's a great attorney, and he'll go through and get. So we got this one lot that was 40 feet wide, did the variance, and sold that. So there's all sorts of types of variances that you can do. It's not just small lots. It's just things like that. And so there's this whole realm. What I really want people to know, there's a whole realm of stuff out there, that you can do. There's this thing called lots of record where, like, I'm giving away way too much shit. I'm probably going to get my butt kicked here in Charlotte. But we found these 100-foot lots that are zoned R4. R4, you need 60 foot of frontage, right? People are like, you can't subdivide that. It's 100 feet. But I can use this grandfathered lots of record, subdivide them, and put them back to 2 lots. So I have this unfair advantage learning these. These are basically zoning loopholes and legal loopholes. I want to learn those, and then I want to take that same thing and run with it over and over and over again. And that's a great way to make money. Learn a legal loophole, a grandfathered zoning clause, look for those, and repeat, rinse and repeat over and over and over again.
One thing I think is really cool about what you do, and a lot of people that do stuff like what you do in general, is that you guys are literally rebuilding the neighborhood for stuff that's been sitting there for 30 years, untouchable, unbuildable, worthless in most people's eyes. You're actually making it worthwhile, making it profitable, making it worth something. So it's a huge, you're changing the outlook of the landscape all by yourself.
Yeah, what I like about it too is, like, with the heirs, a lot of times there's, on some of these deals, we have one right now with 50 something heirs. Okay. So we build these trees out. We bought, this house, nobody would have cleared the Title I for us. So we bought it out. We're almost the way through. So we've got one with 21 heirs, one with like 50 heirs. And, these are things where people are not going to get any money. Okay. They're not going to put it together. It's free money to them. Okay. When I call them up and say, you're heirs to 533 Selden, and they're like, yeah, I sort of remember that was Aunt Martha's house. And I'm like, okay, we're paying X dollars for your share. They're happy because it's found money to them.
Yeah, something they didn't even know they had.
Yeah, and let me tell you about our biggest deal ever on a single-family home. It was a house that was vacant, and this is another heir deal. It's found money to them, and it was, let me see, vacant house. Some squatters had moved in. The guy had passed away. Okay, so what we did is that we built our own family trees now. Okay, at the time we hired a genealogist, built the family tree out. And the rightful heirs were Jack and Lewis Anders, okay? And long story, but their father died in a plane crash in Crete. We get into this stuff. We get into this, like, we learn all this stuff. Their father died in a plane crash in Crete in 1973, okay? And so they were the rightful heirs. We couldn't find them anywhere. We searched and we searched. We're like, what are we doing wrong? So I went back to the funeral home where Frank that held his funeral, and I got the funeral book, okay? And I skip traced every single person that went to the funeral. I read the book, wrote them down, and then someone told me, said, yeah, Jack and Lewis, their mom got remarried to a police officer outside D.C. We're like, well, what if she changed the boys' names? Ding, 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 ding. We found this article, Hoffman marries Anders, and so we're able to find them. And here's the thing too. Frank had died without a will intestate, and you're supposed to probate it, okay? But if somebody's been, here's a little loophole in North Carolina. It doesn't always apply. Somebody's been dead over 2 years, you don't have to open an estate. We didn't want to open an estate. We're afraid of what might happen. So we're like, so this is important. When you talk to them, it's like, here's the situation. Your Uncle Frank owned this property. We're buying it without title insurance. There's vagrants in the house. There's city code. It's going to auction in 2 weeks, which it was for tax foreclosure. And there's a niece that actually had a lease in the property to 20/40 for $1. Okay. And so you got all these problems. And I said, we'll give you $35,000. So part of when you're doing this, you have to set the table. You have to sort of say, look, these are all the problems. If you want to take it on, it's your property, but we'll give you X dollars. And they're like, well, seems like there's a lot of problems here. And the second thing they said after that, they said, this is found money. If you wouldn't have found us, we never would have got it. Oh, it's also partially in a flood zone. Okay. So we're like, these are all the problems. So they said, we'll take your 35,000 because you're buying it without title insurance. So we bought it, kept it 2 years. We sold it for 310 and we made 243,000. That's after paying bonuses to the bird dog that found it. So what I want to get is this is found money most of the time to people, or they can't put it together. So that's what I really like about it.
Man, and this is all through the tax delinquent list.
This is tax delinquent, driving for dollars. And then another thing we do is we take our GIS system. We look for double lots, triple lots, houses with land. We look for lots that can be combined and re-subdivided. We look for all this stuff. We put it in a spreadsheet and then we skip it and we call them because it's a value add. We know that there's extra value there if we can buy the property.
Yeah.
So that's another way. And I'll tell you a quick example. There's a property on Campus Street, okay? 13 heirs. Took us a year to get this done. Long story, but we finally bought it. We bought it for $62,000. Then we saw there's one lot right in front of it. This is better visual, and I'll show you this on the Hive Mind. There's a lot right in front of it. And we're like, if we buy the lot in front of it, can we subdivide it into 4 lots facing the other road? So we called the zoning department up and they said, yeah, if you get this other lot. So I kid around this Uncle Karl math. 1 + 1 divided by 3 = 4. Okay. So we bought it, got it approved to subdivide into 4 lots, sold it. We made $166,000. So we're looking for that value add. We're looking for opportunities. And most people would not have looked for that. But if you can just dive a little bit deeper, spend some time looking how you can reconfigure the lots and subdivide them, you can make a fortune. So that was a really nice hit on that deal.
One of the things that, and for everybody wants to get into niche real estate, it takes time. It takes time. Like every deal you mentioned is like in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 50 heirs. I'm like, what?
Well, we do some quick wholesaling stuff. We do have some 60-day, 30 days. Most of our deals, 6 months plus from the start to finish. It takes time working on these deals with the heirs or, subdividing or with the judgments, But here's another little thing too that's really cool is in Charlotte, I'm sure this happens, there's a lot of houses that were demoed. Like there are houses, they didn't meet code, they demoed them. Well, the city puts a $10,000 to $14,000 demo lien on it. Well, the judgments are only good for 10 years. So we're buying properties with 8 years worth of, 8 years into the judgment, and we're just waiting 2 more years for the judgment to fall off. So far, now I hope there's nobody from Charlotte watching this in the city, but they don't renew their demo liens. They just fall off. So we buy these lots, and then we just wait for the judgment liens to expire.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. You just buy and
Yeah.
wait. One thing I was curious about too that I've never looked into. You said you were buying the judgments. Do you go in there as like a cash buyer? Like, hey, I want the judgment on 8123 Main Street. I want to buy this lien.
Well, you have to what we have to do is we'll pull the file from the courthouse, and we'll read it. It'll say, like Smith Dedman does whatever Tiffany's attorney that did it, and then we'll just call the attorney. So like you have to go in, you pull the title work, you get the judgment, and then you have to go in and pull the judgment, read over that, and see which attorney is handling the judgment. Typically it's handled by an attorney, not always. Then you have to call them, and then this is what I say. I'm Karl Spielvogel with Alliance Finance, and we buy bad judgments or old judgments. And I noticed you have one. I'm sort of just curious what your plans are. And then you shut up and you listen. Like for example, the one that I bought for $2,250. I just called the guy up and said, your judgment's about 8 years old. It's going to expire. I'm just curious what your plans are. He goes, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I can buy it from you. And I said, he goes, well, how much? I said, $2,250. He goes, sold, done. I'm like, damn, I should have offered less. But what you get is, here's another, yeah. So anyways, I love this stuff. It's so exciting. So it's pretty easy. You just have to skip trace, call them, and then negotiate to purchase the judgments. Or if you have a property, you might be negotiating a discount to pay it off. A lot of times that's what we'll do. We'll negotiate a discount to pay it off.
Have you ever bought a judgment and foreclosed?
Yes. A deal I shouldn't have done. This was a deal that our friend Brian Linky brought to 5 attorneys. He said, you guys can't do this, too complicated. So I'm like, I can do anything. Okay. I was like Mr. Billy Badass. Shouldn't have done this deal, but this is how it worked. So there was a first mortgage to an IRA, a second mortgage to private individual, a whole bunch of different judgments against the property. So these judgments came later. So what we did is we skip traced one of the judgment holders, and this is what we said. We called him up and said, hey, look, you have a judgment. What happened? Tell me what happened. He goes, oh, this guy screwed me over and he owes me a lot of money. I said, you're very far back. There's a first mortgage, a second mortgage, all these other judgments. It doesn't look like you're going to get anything. He goes, no, probably not. I said, how would you like to make a little bit of money and get the guy back? You can look this up in charge, 3101 Florida. Okay. What we did was we basically rented his judgment and we foreclosed on the property to get ownership. And we owned the property, but we still had to do with the first mortgage, the second mortgage. So we negotiated the first mortgage, a discount. Okay. The second mortgage, we negotiated to get them down to $7,500. And we negotiated discounts and liens with all the other ones. We made $75,000 on it. It wasn't worth the time, but it was for proof of concept. It was worth doing, and for bragging rights. But it really, all the time we spent, it was so much. But so the point is, you can get a judgment and foreclose and own the property. And some people do that. But you also got to look at the title where the judgment falls in line. Now, if it's in the beginning and it's a pretty big judgment, that's one you'd love to buy, because you're going to pick up the most equity.
And you can wipe out everybody else when you foreclose.
Was that?
And you can wipe out all the other positions.
I think it depends. It depends. If the property sells for $100,000, your judgment for $75,000, there's going to be $25,000 that anybody else can get and apply for. So that's something you need to talk to an attorney. And I'm not an attorney, but it pretty much does, I think. But I think there can be excess which some of the other judgment lien holders could go after, depending on what the amount of your judgment is. Damn, we're niching down to some weird shit, aren't we?
Yeah, but I mean, and here's, like I said, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought, like, if you, let's say there's 5 judgments, you buy a second position. When you buy and foreclose on second position, you could technically wipe out 3, 4, and 5, right?
I think it depends.
It depends.
And I think it depends. I think it depends on, like, how much your judgment's for. Let's say and I'm not an expert on this. I don't, but let's just say you buy the first position and that judgment's worth $50,000. You foreclose, and the property sells for more than that. I think those other judgment holders can get up to that amount. But I think as a rule of thumb, you're right. You buy the judgment foreclosed, it'll wipe out most of the others typically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's something you need to talk to an attorney about.
So, and like I said, your judgment list, do you actually contact the place and like, hey, what properties do you have judgments on? Or you're looking at properties first, then doing like a soft pull?
We back into all the judgments. It's by going up to tax delinquents. It's by referrals and foreclosure. So we're backing into them, and when we run title, we find them. And another one we love to find is IRS judgments. So we bought a house at 4548 Strangford. It had all the other people ran like, oh my God, it's got $100,000 in IRS judgments. So we're like, hey, we'll buy it. It was a foreclosure. We paid $73,000. My partner Mitch put $73,000 IRA, gave the owners a couple $1,000. There was $100,000. No, IRS judgments or liens are only good for 10 years, and they typically don't renew them. If they renew them, because we put it into the land trust, it only renews against the person. So we bought it with all the judgments. We rented it out, and then we sold it 4 years later. We made $147,000 on that deal. Now, I've never seen the IRS foreclose. I'm not saying they won't, but my experience, I've never seen that happen. We just buy them and we wait out the IRS judgments.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to like the IRS they're there to collect taxes, they're not there to own property. So they're just gonna wait till somebody fixes it or if it falls off.
Yeah, we bought several of that and we waited the IRS out, a little nerve-wracking, but it's paid off really good for us.
And I think it comes down to measuring your risk. And it seems like you're buying these deals so deep that you're willing to weigh that risk.
Yep.
That's
I mean,
huge.
at some point I told my partners, at some point we're gonna have a 50, 60, $70,000 loss. But if we keep winning with these big ones, if we have a $60,000 or $70,000 loss, we're playing with house money now. So I'm okay with that. And we probably will at some point have a $60,000, $70,000 loss. And I'll come back on and tell you how we lost 60 or 70,000. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen at some point. But we had $166,000 profit, 243, 228,000. You make these big profits, you're gonna have a loss somewhere when you're buying these things with bad title issues. So far, we haven't had any more than some small losses. So
No, it got me curious because, like I said, I understand a lot of this stuff. It's just I haven't really delved into it out here in California. It's just one of those things where like I'm a sponge of information, and I love this stuff too because it's kind of funny how like all this judgment stuff, and it's so cool that you bought a judgment and foreclosed because like in my head I would like if I had the money and time I would probably do that too just for fun, just to see.
Yeah, we paid $2,000 to basically we just rented his judgment. We gave him $2,000 foreclosed, put the property in, and we gave him the judgment back, and he released it against the property so he could still go after the guy.
You rented a judgment?
I'm that one at 3101 Florida. We basically used his judgment to foreclose to get the ownership, and then he released it from the property, but he still let him keep the judgment so he could go after other stuff the guy had.
Ah, that's crazy. Judgments are so interesting. It's crazy how it works, but that's so interesting, man. Now I'm like in my head, I'm like, how many properties are out there that have judgments on them that you can negotiate and buy a judgment and get a badass deal?
Hundreds. I mean, thousands and thousands. Like you're going to these tax delinquents. There'll be people that had cars that got repoed. So it'll be a $6,000 or $7,000 judgment or more for the car. A lot of times, I mean, the rule of thumb, and I'm not saying right, is you can almost always get 50% off on a judgment. Almost always, depending. And sometimes you can get them for pennies on the dollar. It sort of all depends on the situation.
So, and my brain goes the other way. So people that are in debt, for anybody who out there in debt and has judgments on you or for any type of debt consolidation, you can technically get an LLC, say you're a debt consolidator, and buy your own debt on pennies in the dollar.
It's possible. Yeah.
No, I like providing the knowledge that not a lot of people think about, but it gets the wheels turning and people's like, okay, I know my cousin is in a lot of debt, going through a lot of financial problems. If they came into some windfall of money, they can technically have somebody else contact their debt and buy it 50 cents in the dollar or cheaper.
Or just discount it and pay it off. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad debt out there that people will take pennies on the dollar for just to get paid,
It's one of those, my mind just goes there, and I think it's kind of funny because like a lot of people in those situations, they think it's the end of the world. And like for us, we're like, yeah, you'd probably get it 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, it all depends on the situation.
So this is kind of going on the tangent of debts. There's a guy he has an HBO. He does a comedy show. John Oliver. He bought like millions of dollars worth of debt, pennies in the dollar, and he forgave all the debt. He forgave like $100 million worth of debt because he bought it so cheap. And then he sent like letters out to all these people that he forgave all this debt that he just bought. And it's one of those things where like a lot of people like medical debt, credit card debt, all these different types of judgments, like all this stuff. There's a gray area, and once you understand it, you can move.
I'm sure he bought it for like 5 cents on the dollar or something like that.
Exactly. Like if you're buying that much debt, you can probably get it really cheap. And there's just people, there's just people out there capitalizing on this information, which is why I love this. This is such a great call. And this is whoever this is. I wish I could figure a way to figure out who this is, but it just blew my mind. And this is one of those things like you don't know what you don't know. But once you understand how the process works, how the whole judgment leans, like you can understand the process, and it kind of opens your mind to limitless possibilities.
Yeah, like here's another example. These houses that were demoed in Charlotte, I'm sure there's elsewhere, sometimes there's mortgages still out there, right? So like that somebody had a house and it got in bad shape, the city demoed it, And then the mortgage company said, it's still technically attached to the property. They stopped paying the taxes. And so far, we've been able to get the mortgages. We're 100% successful so far. I'm not saying we're also on getting the mortgages released from the property. Okay. So we had one at 4109 Glenwood where we gave some money up front. We knew there's an old mortgage. So what happens is taxes are always in first position, no matter what. Okay. So what happens when the house got demoed, then the taxes didn't get paid for years and years. So they're now in first position. So this mortgage company, they're just like, there's nothing left. So when we do our legal filings, that they have a certain amount of time to respond. If they don't, our attorneys mark the mortgage satisfied and we're able to resell the property. And that's just another little niche, another little nugget that we learned just by jumping in. A lot of stuff, if we can get a little bit of money, we'll buy something or we'll partner with the person and we'll just try to figure it out. And that was really cool. So we've done quite a few of those, and those have been great windfalls because the people know, usually heirs, there's a mortgage, they're behind on taxes, there's a demo lien. They're like, we'll give them a little bit of money, we'll go through and work through everything, get the mortgage released, and we'd be able to resell the property. And here's another little thing I learned. Like a lot of this stuff, guys, is getting in and figuring it out along the way. There was a problem. I live in Mecklenburg County. The county next to us is Gaston County. So I was looking at this property in Gaston County and I was negotiating to buy it. And we ran title, and the guy lives in Mecklenburg and he had tons of IRS liens against him. I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to buy this property. We're done. Well, here's the gold nugget. IRS liens are only good in the county they're filed in. They didn't file any of the ones in Mecklenburg County. It didn't attach to the house. So I was able to negotiate a really good deal in terms with the guy to buy the house. So that's just a little, does it happen very often? No. But if you know to look for some of these things, then every now and then that'll happen. Like every now and then we'll get one of these small lots that for next to nothing or cheap that we can do the variance on. Every now and then we'll see one like the Campus Street. There's one lot plus 1 divided by 3 is 4. So you have all these little niche things that you learn. Maybe you do 2 variances a year. Maybe you do a couple of the redo and re-subdivide. But if you make 166,000, 100,000, whatever, 100,000 here and there, it starts to add up to real money after a while.
So I have a question about the IRS lien. So the IRS lien does not attach in the county. Does it still attach to him, or did you negotiate it down since it wasn't attached in the county?
Well, it was still attached to him, but because it's filed in Mecklenburg and he owned a house in Gaston County, we were able to buy that. We didn't have to negotiate any with the IRS because the lien didn't attach to that one property. It's in Gaston County.
Gotcha. Okay.
Check with your attorneys, all that kind of disclosure, But that, again, does it happen very often? No, but it's just something because it does happen.
It happens. I love this conversation, man, because this judgments and airships, it's fun. It's fun to piece it all together, and it's like putting together a puzzle that pays you thousands of dollars at the end.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and you have to put your money up front on a lot of these deals. Because who's going to loan money on a property where you own 9/10 of? It's like, hey, you got a hard money. Can you loan me money? I own 9/10 of this property. They're going to look at you as crazy. So it does take some, you have to put your money in these messy things, but the paydays are huge.
Do you do like ovation type deals? I think you do, because you're almost like you'll partner with the seller. That way you bring less money to the table because you're just at that point you're just putting up your time.
Well, we have not done any novation deals yet. We know a little bit about them, but we have not done any like that.
It sounds like you've done them in your own way, just not called them novations.
Yeah. Well, like I'll tell you about another one. It's a property tax delinquent deal. It was a commercial building, okay? And we skip traced the guys behind on taxes. He left town. We found him. We called him. We started talking to him. And he asked, "Was that building still standing?" I'm like, "Yes, it's still standing." But in Charlotte, like if commercial buildings been abandoned for a certain period of time, we were worried about code enforcement. And if we had to renovate it, sometimes if it's been abandoned a certain amount of years, you're going to have to bring it up to today's code. So we didn't want to really buy it. So we were trying to negotiate back and forth. And then we finally said, hey, let's do this. Let's partner on the deal. Okay. First of all, you didn't even realize the building was still standing. Okay. So let's partner on the deal. So we ended up, again, because we're afraid of code. We're afraid of what the city might make us do. So we didn't want to put our cash into this building. So we said, look, we're good at marketing. We'll put some money into it, which we did. We clean it up. And then we'll split the profits 50-50. He's like, sure. So we formed a LLC, not a land trust, basically LLC, where he got 50% of the beneficial interest. We got 50% of the beneficial interest. The reason we did that is we didn't want any more judgments and stuff to attach. Well, it turns out there was an old deed of trust open, and there's an old mortgage on it, and the owner of that was deceased. So long story, we made a deal to pay him out. We went to the owner's relatives and worked out a deal for them to satisfy the mortgage. And then we sold it and we made $90,000 on about a $3,000 or $4,000 total investment. Because I was just cleaning it out and putting it into a partnership. So sometimes partnerships work with sellers in certain, see, that's another thing too. We've learned all sorts of creative ways. Sometimes it makes sense to partner with them. This one, it made sense for us to partner because we didn't want to take the risk of having to bring it to code and what the city would, and city code enforcement. So we partnered, put it into our own land trust, think of it as LLC, and then it protected both of us because if any judgments, so no more judgments or problems could happen to the property. And then we sort of were able to get through this old deed of trust that was still open on the property. And there's just so many ways to do stuff out there. It's just crazy how you can structure stuff, you know?
What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. A little bit, you make your own luck. I think that people are like, Karl, you got lucky on this deal. You got lucky on this. I think by taking action and putting stuff out in the universe, you make luck. And then, but I don't have any kind of real quotes that I can say. But I'll give you a quick example of making your own luck, okay? This is we got a property, 2 owners, this lot on Bearwood. Guy names was Bryant. I can't remember Bryant. Okay, anyways, there's 2 owners, right? Skip trace. We make a deal to buy half the lot. And then there's another half. The guy's name was DeMario Fleming, okay? And we couldn't find him. This is sort of in the beginning. So we're trying to find DeMario everywhere. And I'm like, man, I can't find this guy. We're closing out. We only buying half this thing. What are we going to do? So I was at this real estate meeting, Linda Dana's real estate meeting. And I was talking to a guy next to me. His name was Gary Boger. And I said, hey, look, we were talking about different deals. Like, hey, I got half this deal. And I said, I just got to find this other half. This guy named is DeMario Fleming. And I can't find him anywhere. He said, who'd you say? I said, DeMario Fleming. He goes, he's one of my best friends. He lives in Florida. He opened his phone, called him up, and said, DeMario, I got someone who wants to buy half that lot you own. And he handed me the phone. DeMario happened to be flying in that weekend, okay, for a funeral, and we're trying to close it Monday or Tuesday. So I convinced him to pay for his hotel room to stay over another night, and he did. But that was lucky. But I put it out in the universe, and it came through. So being in action and stuff, you're going to create your own luck. So I really believe people create their own luck. So that's the best thing I can get to a saying. I wouldn't say it's really a saying, but if you're out there doing stuff, you're going to make luck come to you.
No, I think it's a valid statement because a lot of people they're waiting for the opportunity, and you can wait your whole life for an opportunity to come across.
People are like, I'm waiting for the downturn. I'm waiting for the downturn. Well, you're being a dumbass. There's opportunities everywhere. I don't care how high the market is between these judgments, these errors, the zoning loopholes, people that just want to sell. There's opportunities everywhere. So if you're waiting for the downturn, and I'm just kidding, I can understand. I'm not really calling people dumbasses, but I'm just trying to say is don't wait for that. There's opportunities everywhere. Go out and make your own luck. Go out and figure this stuff out along the way. This is the United States. There's more opportunities here than anywhere else. This is such a phenomenal fucking country with opportunities out there. And there's people like you guys sharing information, your hive mind, CRM and stuff. There's all this stuff out here. You just got to be in action. You got to learn and surround yourself with good people, and you're going to be successful.
Man, I appreciate that, man. Make your own luck. Go out there, do the work. There's no shortcuts in life. Only shortcut you're going to get is if you do more work.
But I think it's one of the things. Here's another thing that's really helped us. Okay, we spend a lot of money with attorneys. Okay, so I took my 2 attorney buddies out, and we spent $1,250 for one meal. And of course, I get them liquored up as I can, and then they'll start getting really drunk. I said, well, can you tell me some like really cool zoning stuff or really cool stuff like that? Here, you need another tequila. This is a $35 tequila. You hand it to them, and then they start. I'm sort of kidding, but truthful. But by spending time with the attorneys, they're telling you all sorts of really cool stuff. I spent a lot of time with my surveyor. This is another thing. I went out the other day with my surveyor, spent 1 hour. I'm not kidding. I will make $300,000 to $500,000 off what he showed me. Seriously. How to subdivide certain things, how to do certain things. So one of the things too is if you can learn the niches, talk to the surveyors, talk to the zoning people, talk to the investors that are doing creative stuff, then that's your path quicker to that niche, that stuff that people don't talk about, that you can make a ton of money. It's like the judgment stuff. It's talking to a lot of attorneys, figuring that out. I'm like, you can buy a judgment? Okay. I didn't, I didn't know any of this stuff, but it was just talking to attorneys, investors, and figuring out. And if you spend a lot of your time doing that, then and learning these things, you guys can do really well in this business.
So I heard an interest. I go on TikTok a lot because I produce stuff on TikTok, so I pay attention to stuff on TikTok. I saw this younger guy. He's a business professional. He said he wanted to learn specialized knowledge, so he went out and found the person he wanted to learn from and asked her, how much do you get paid a month? She's like, about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. He's like, I'll pay you $9,000 for 8 hours of your time. And she's like, what? She's like, you want 3 days? And she's like, no, 8 hours. So the lady went in and made she took a month of her time to create a presentation, an 8-hour presentation for this one guy for $9,000. And he soaked up all the information in one day.
It's worth it. $9,000. Like if you can learn 1 or 2 things that you can replicate, oh my God. That meeting with my surveyor was incredible. It blew my mind. I'm like, you can't subdivide it this way. He goes, yes, you can. It's like you have to do this and this and this. I'm like, holy shit. It's like, and we've already done 3 or 4 deals from what he showed us. So we've already put it into play. So now we have these niche things, this knowledge that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
So that you made a great point there with that person. $9,000 for them to put the presentation on how to make money over and over again. That's cheap. It's cheap.
It's cheap when you actually have the ability to take action on it and you understand different facets of it. So if you already know what you're coming at, what specialized knowledge you require from them, you can absorb it all quickly and pay them for the price that for them a day $9,000 is an exorbitant amount of money. But you can actually use your marketing side and bring in your skills to make your return.
Exactly. Make it work.
So I really wanted to bring that up because that was such a huge nugget. The specialized knowledge you get from your title company, your surveyor, your attorneys, all that stuff is going to be priceless for you, and you can leverage that forever, especially if you're local and you do business locally so heavily.
And the key is to get them really drunk so they loosen up and they tell you more. So,
and you got to pay for that sometimes, and you got to pay for it with a good time sometimes. I tell my wife all the time, like, I'm gonna go take somebody out to dinner. She's like, "You're not gonna have fun." I'm like, "No, I'm working. I'm working right now."
It's both. You're working, you're having fun, and you're learning a lot of great stuff.
So for anybody out there that wants to learn things quickly, sometimes you have to pay for it up front. But if you're going to use that information wisely and in the future, it's worth paying for. Always worth paying for.
And let me plug. I have a mastermind group. It's way too cheap. It's $105 a month. It's called Uncle Karl with a K. Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind Group. We share this kind of stuff. We also bring specialists in. Like we brought my friend Erica in. She's a genealogist. She builds family trees. She helps find people. We brought DeAndre from the Hive Mind's been on there. He broke down his whole business. I couldn't believe he showed exactly how he makes money to everybody. I was like, DeAndre, you just showed everybody your whole business thing. He's like, I'm fine. He had abundance mentality. So, we bring people like this into there. Oh, and we had Daniel. We even had Daniel on. So join my mastermind. It's $105 a month. It's cheap, and you get a lot of great information, a lot of different people and stuff.
So how do we find that again? Uncle Karl's mastermind.
I should have a link, but if you Google Uncle Karl with a K, Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind Group. Oh, Erica's here. I didn't realize she was here. Hey, Erica. She did a phenomenal presentation last night. We were on for like 2 or 3 hours, finding heirs, finding people. It was just sharing how you can actually do it yourself. It was a phenomenal meeting last night. So,
well, that's awesome, man. The reason why I do this, and the reason why I do this as a whole, is because I tell this to people all the time, is I support people that support people, and us people that support people, we're making a driving force to the real estate community, the education community, and it's just really providing information freely that everybody else can capitalize on it. The reason why I share information freely, not everyone's going to take action. Like, if people can listen to the same conversation the last hour we just had and pull 5 things out of it and do some research on it, they can become a millionaire in 5 years. Easily.
By the way, if you make money, please send me a small cut. Yeah. I'll leave my phone number too. If people want to, it's best if you text me. How do I do? You get the stream thing. I'm not used to this. I'm used to.
Send it through here to chat, and I'll put it up here.
Okay.
And I'll put it up.
This is my personal phone number. I prefer people text first, but we love to talk real estate, joint venture. Probably 20 to 25% of our deals come from joint ventures and working with people. So yeah, reach out to me, join the mastermind. I need to come out with a course because I'm not bragging. I'm just excited that I've learned all this stuff. It's people that shared stuff with us, in-depth research that we've learned all this really super cool. So, and I could have talked for hours about the air stuff. We hardly even got into that. There's so many exit strategies when you're doing airs and stuff. It's crazy.
No, it's a good time, man. I appreciate your time. Go Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind. Go check it out. It's worth it. As you can see, he provides value freely, and there's plenty of information out there, and you can use the specialized knowledge to make a lot of money with it. You just got to take action. Take action.
Make your own luck. All right. You make your own luck. Get out there and be in action.
There you make your own luck, and you got to take action. I appreciate your time. Catch us on the next episode. Uncle Karl, thanks for coming on. That was a great episode.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.